Now we're going to move into our AESD regular business meeting. And I'd like to call the meeting to order, the annual membership meeting. And the remainder of our time together will consist of our report on our work of the network over the past year, consideration of proposed 21-22 AESD budgets, presentation of the annual AESD Executive Board Award of Distinction, formerly called the AESD Board. And with that, I'll invite this year's AESD Superintendent Chair, Tim Molina, from AESD 112, and Jessica Vargas, our Network Executive Director, and Melissa Gromboski. Did I say that right, Melissa?
You said it exactly right.
Okay. To share the network updates.
Okay, hey, thanks, John. The three of us are going to share the network update. I'm just going to get it kicked off. At our last conference, when we were all together celebrating our 50th anniversary at Skamania Lodge in Stevenson, I got the chance to address this group. I talked about ESDs doing big things, taking on big projects, and solving big problems. And in my mind, that was kind of our path forward. Of course, I had no idea what would happen 10 months later, but I got to see what real big problems are. I just want to thank the ESD boards for supporting all of us and allowing us to be flexible enough to provide the services to our school districts. We've built relationships now that are far beyond what they've been in the past with our school districts, OSPI, and the legislature. At all levels of the ESD, we've exhibited leadership through job-alike meetings. I'm so proud of all the folks I work with on this Zoom. And this experience has helped ESD staff to also build lasting relationships among ourselves. I think we've proven our worth, and it's going to be demonstrated in the rest of our network reports. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica and Melissa, who I really want to thank. It's been great working with you guys this year. You guys are very responsible for where we're at, and in a good way I'm talking about. But anyway, I just want to thank you. It's been great working with you. So Melissa or Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Tim. And thank you all again for joining us tonight. It's my privilege to support you and serve you and support the partnerships across our state on behalf of the network. I've had a pleasure getting to know the executive board and working with you all as well. 2 years ago, you embarked on creating a strategic or formalizing a strategic plan, and several of you were engaged in that. Some of you weren't at all. I'm not going to go deeply into it, but this is a look at the broad vision for AESD and your goals, strategic relationships, growing the network, and telling our story and the values that go along with those. And this will frame the rest of my sharing as to what the network's been up to. And I'll just prepare you in advance. I have a lot to share. We'll go pretty quickly, but this slide deck and the recording will be available on the website, the event website, after probably tomorrow or the next day. So you can go back and utilize the slides and access them as well. All right, so in terms of our network updates around strategic relationships, we have, yes. So Melissa will speak a lot more about our legislative advocacy and our outreach to legislators, the work we've done around coherence with our communications, one-pagers, a toolkit around AESD legislative priorities. We've had increased asks and wins for the AESD that she will be sharing. So that's really exciting. We've also been expanding our partnerships. Early learning, like we were talking about earlier when Chris was speaking, with DCYF, with the partners in the early learning space, and with our state healthcare authority around behavioral and mental health issues. In terms of statewide COVID response, several speakers spoke to this, but we have really engaged as a network around this area. We have every week your ESDs engage in multiple opportunities with their district leaders to share, to network, to share successes and challenges, and to troubleshoot, and then get that feedback back to OSPI and other state leaders to inform their work. We also, since the very beginning, have been doing work around mapping. So early on, there was the push around childcare and nutrition. The AESD stepped in and we provided some help trying to get people to where they could pick up lunches. A year ago, that was the big thing, and where they could find childcare. We've also helped over the course of the year distribute learning devices to school districts across the state, working in collaboration with the governor's office. And in a minute, I will shine a light on our PPE procurement and distribution efforts that have been monumental. Chris mentioned the statewide coordination with OSPI. We've provided support and input to 25 statewide webinars since last March. And we've partnered with WASA to facilitate a couple statewide district networking events where districts have come together. We've had our first one, we had over 300 district leaders come together to learn from each other and share with each other. And that's been in partnership with WASA. And then we also have really launched a massive effort around supporting districts with distance professional learning that I'll mention in a moment. And then our tribal relationships have been engaged and strengthened. So just a couple of deeper dive examples on strategic relationships. So from the beginning, you can read the slide, you can see the footprint here, but we supported over 400 organizations. So not just public school districts, but private schools, charters, tribal compacts, and getting PPE as soon as they were providing services. So we've had two formal rounds. We've had, we are the go-to, not Department of Enterprise Services, not our emergency management. Emergency management is coming to us to ask for our help getting out PPE to school districts all over the state. You can see by the numbers, we've got a lot of volume. Your ESDs have probably seen semi trucks coming and going, and your ESD teams have been just doing yeoman's work, getting the resources out to districts to support their work. What we've been able to garner in terms of our procurement process compared to what the state or districts could even purchase individually has saved districts 75% of actual costs on their PPE, which is quite a bit of dough. So we're really an economy of scale, and we've turnkeyed it. It's very fast. It may not be the business your fiscal officers might be tearing their hair out, but it sure is something that is of great service, and we have received many, many kudos for that support that we're providing the field. I wanted to offer up another example that is emerging, that's evolving, and that's around strategic relationships with our tribal partners in Native education. So we have, over the last year, with OSPI's hiring of a new executive director of Native Education, John Claymore, we have partnered so very closely with him and his Office of Native Ed to forge some deep relationships with tribal leaders and elders to inform our work as an ESD network, as well as OSPI's work with tribal compact schools, but also all schools across the state around Native education. We also have 25 members of our ESDs across the state, staff, and also community partners that are participating in a 2-year Native education program, certificate program, to really build our own capacity for navigating new learnings, but also facilitating and working at the government to government level with our tribal and Indigenous partners. And then finally, we have 3 ESDs through House Bill 1139 from 2019, I believe, that are engaged in a pilot to recruit and retain Native educators. And so that's in partnership with efforts with tribal partners across the state and also with OSPI. And that's just emerging work. So it's not us ESDs coming in and saying, okay, here we are, we're gonna save the day. It's really building the relationships and growing that capacity in close partnerships with tribes in your regions. All right, growing the network. You can read this slide as well, but these are some of the, I believe it was Greg who mentioned the $43 million in just outstanding annual statewide initiatives. We do have across our 10 organizations, there are at least 15 formal statewide initiatives with OSPI, and then across the ESDs, there are many, many more. There are a couple of new projects that came on within the last year and a half. The Region 16 Comprehensive Center is one that actually is supporting us with a lot of the tribal partnerships that we are embarking upon. And then we have resources that have come through with our statewide professional learning efforts. This next slide, oops, sorry. You can see graphically just the growth over the last 2 years since 2018-19 of the network, just in revenues and expenditures. So revenues increased 19%, over 19%, and network-wide over 13%. And so that's, again, testament to the work of your teams and the coming together of a network that is really exciting, and hopefully that trajectory continues. So we have, April, exactly 1 year ago, we were looked to and said, okay, ESDs, what are y'all doing to help? What are you doing to help districts transition to distance learning? And so we started out with, on the right side of your screen, with a partnership with Jeff Utek, Reimagine, WA-Ed, Shifting Schools. That was really about like, actually, folks, you can do distance learning, you can use technology. It was helping empower our educators to realize that they can create their craft in a virtual environment. And you can see the participation in that just between, well, basically over a year, less than a year. We had folks involved from all over the state, public schools, private schools, you name it. That was a revenue generating endeavor. In tandem with that, in June of last year, we went to OSPI and said, hey, we think we can help with professional learning around learning management systems, LMS systems. And that's, you can see Chris and his team trusted us. They said, we'll allocate a bit of our federal dollars to support you to do your work and roll out a statewide delivery system for content professional learning. And so this is just a quick video. It is short, but we did want to share with you a short video. I think Shiloh, you'll show it, just to bring to life some of the LMS solutions work. You've got it, Shiloh.
We can't return to pre-COVID the way things were. Our kids are going to expect more out of us, and we expect more out of us. And those of you in the room today are going to lead that effort.
It's just so heartening to see so many of you here from all over the state. I just so appreciate, number one, Christina and the team for pulling this together, and for the journey, the learning journey that many, if not all of you, have been on since the fall.
It's about relationships, and they matter. And it's all about that love, the love that we help our students learn for themselves, so that in turn they're able to be able to have that love and compassion for one another. But we can't give out anything we don't already possess.
This is the first time that I, as an educator, have found communities like this where I feel supported and I'm learning so many things from people all over the state. It's not just my lunch buddies. So that has been really great.
For many years past, I've had issues with not feeling connected to the community. So this is a really good way for me to get outreach going and really start to talk to people, start to network, start to see who can I link my students up with so that they can see and be successful in their future. Thank you for your time, and I really do appreciate this program. It has helped me massively, and definitely has ignited a springboard underneath my butt to kind of like go for it, do new things, try it out. Thank you.
So we have hundreds of videos. One of the exit tickets that educators complete when they go through the LMS series is a video reflection. And so we have a treasure trove. So, and you each have someone in your ESD who can access those if you're ever curious. But again, kudos to your teams coming together to present this work. with a statewide spirit. Just a couple other examples, and then I'll hand it over to Melissa. So all of you are probably aware that since 2006, the AESD has been involved in school accreditation, and we have grown thanks to the shepherding over the last few years of the Northwest ESD team. We have grown in our services and support to leading the field for school accreditation. Over 40% of the state schools are accredited through AESD through that process. And board members are critical to this process. And as reviewers of the accreditation recommendations, as well as updates of their status. And we would, you'll be receiving some information from your superintendents, but we are recruiting for board member panelists to support the upcoming review of accreditation proposals in May. And you can see the dates here. And so it will be virtual. So I know that's not everybody's favorite, but we are looking, it's a great way to just get an eye into the hard work districts are doing on behalf of their communities and for their students. And so many slots are open. Contact your ESD superintendent to get involved, and he or she will get you signed up with the team. Finally, telling our story, I think that's what tonight's about, but you can see a few of the things here that we are working hard to do in terms of branding for coherence across our work. So with that, I'll hand it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Jessica. Let me just see if I can work the technology and share my screen here. Give me a second. There you go. Well, hello, everyone. It's good to see you. And I wish, of course, we were meeting in person because that's a lot more fun, but still good to see you on the screen tonight. So we are day 94 of the 105-day legislative session. It's not that we're counting down the days or anything, but we're sure getting close to the end. And it's honestly been a very long 94 days, and we're ready for that break that will come at the end of the legislative session. So just to let you know where we are on day 94, we do have 105 days to go. The last revenue forecast that came out showed our state budget in much better shape than we thought going into the legislative session. We thought that the legislature would be making significant cuts, and we were bracing for that. As an AESD. Turns out the economy is doing much better than it was a number of months ago. Between the state economy and the infusion of federal dollars that you heard about earlier, the budget's in much better shape, which makes it easier for lawmakers as they are going into this final weeks, and they're doing budget negotiations right now. So we've seen budget proposals from both the Senate and the House, and now they're in the process of doing that reconciliation or the final negotiation. So we're excited to see what that budget looks like for ESDs and school districts when we see that in the next week or so. So we are scheduled to sine die, which is our fancy legislative term for the very last day of session. And of course, when the session ends, there will be 20 more days left in our legislative activity when Governor Inslee will be signing bills. We, just as a reminder, the Democrats, I call Washington the triple blue state. So Democrats control all, both the House and the Senate and the office of the governor pretty substantially. So Democrats have a 57 to 41 seat majority in the Senate, or I'm sorry, in the House, and the Senate 28 to 21. So that means when these budget negotiations are happening, it's really Democrats negotiating amongst themselves, and not as easy as you would think, because then there becomes differences in parties that they're working to iron out. This has been, I have been probably around my 25th legislative session being involved in some way. This is the most unique session that we have had. It's been challenging. Communication with lawmakers is difficult. So we've had to be creative in our advocacy and texting and Zoom meetings and phone calls. Usually we work out, we do some of our advocacy in hallway conversations. A really important part of the legislative process, just those informal conversations. That's not happened this year. So it has provided challenges. We haven't had same type of access that we do when we can go to the Capitol. So that picture there, picture of lawmakers who themselves are meeting via Zoom, and it's provided some challenges. One good thing about the legislative session is that lawmakers are now, ESDs seem to be top of mind when they're thinking about education policy and how they want to drive out equitable policy across the state. They think of the network, and that's been good for us in many ways, and has also kept us very busy, as well as sometimes lawmakers are writing us into bills that we didn't anticipate, and we're having to quickly respond. But it's actually a good problem to have. Really exciting bill that looks to be passing this year is Senate Bill 5237, the Early Start Act for Kids. This is an omnibus bill that invests significantly in early learning, which benefits not only our youngest learners, but our ESDs as well. We are still asking that in the budget, when that comes out, that there will be funding for early learning coordinators at each of our 9 ESDs, so we can support the growth of early learning programs that the legislature envisions in that bill. House Bill 1214, ESDs continue to be looked to as leaders in school safety. There is a lot of discussion around police reform that has extended to SROs or law enforcement in our schools, and the legislature is asking through that bill that we be a part of training those SROs so that they're best equipped to serve our school districts. And then finally, House Bill 1365 began as a bill to provide one-on-one technology devices to every student in Washington state. And this is not a proposal that we brought to the legislature, but they thought of ESDs as a trusted partner in providing technology support. And that bill's still moving forward. And we're hopeful when the budget comes out that there will be one position at each ESD to support technology services for school districts. So Jessica and I were actually still working on that bill just within a couple hours of our meeting starting today. When the budget comes out, we'll be looking for these items amongst others, that budget stability. So as we talked about earlier, ESDs are not eligible for ESSER dollars or any of those federal funds, but we, supported by OSPI, went to the legislature and asked for funds to stabilize ESD budgets so they can turn around and we can serve schools. So we're thrilled to have been successful to see that in the budgets, and are very optimistic we'll see that funding when the final budget comes out. I mentioned early learning coordinators. As far as our regional safety centers go, we do have that policy in place, and we have some of the funding, but are still advocating and asking that those regional safety centers be fully resourced. And in early versions of the budget, we do see some additional funding, not the 100%, but every year we're getting closer. We're also talking to lawmakers about the need to continue to invest in climate science and our school nurse corps, Career Connect learning, and just our basic core funding. So, and I'll end by saying in our ESD budget items, the governor declared a mental health emergency for students. And so just in the last couple of days, lawmakers are starting to think about, maybe they should have been thinking about it earlier, how we would support school districts best as students return and have increased mental and behavioral health needs. And they are looking to ESDs to grow our ability to serve and support those students. So we may see funding in the budget for that as well. Our budget numbers do continue to grow. Legislators value the AESD network, and as they're thinking about policy, we've seen our bottom line budget number grow. It's almost doubled in the last 2 years. So we are enjoying that trust of the legislature. It has created some challenges. We want to make sure that they don't think that ESDs can do everything for free or too inexpensively, and we are asking them to fully fund those programs and that they ask us to do. So generally, it's been very good, and we're really proud of the work and the trust the legislature's put in the AESD network. And then finally, we do continue to advocate for our school districts. We have led in the funding portion of the School Funding Coalition, specifically on enrollment and transportation asks. So we've worked and built partnerships with WASA, WASDA, AWSP, or as we call them, the ABC groups, the school board members, our superintendents, and then principals as well. So we're continuing to advocate for school districts, for mental health supports, for COVID recoveries. And we are excited to get to the end, to April 25, and that's it.